God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. And what that means is, you go outside, you look at the trees, you look at the sky, you look at the ocean, you look up at the stars and the moon, and there is construction put in there. That was designed.
How do you know?
It makes no sense that something so brilliant can just appear one day. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Well, first of all, that's called an argument from ignorance fallacy. It's a logical fallacy. What you're actually stating is that it must be designed because you can't imagine that it could not be designed.
An argument from ignorance.
Yes, you don't know how it actually came about, and so you're asserting that therefore your claim that a God did it is the viable option.
And there's a second fallacy.
Unfortunately, that's not the way evidence works. So when you call in and say you have evidence for a God...
I have evidence right here, Isaiah 40:18.
No, sir. The Bible is not evidence for the existence of a God.
The Bible is, in fact, evidence for the existence of a God. You don't believe it is evidence, but in fact,
that's
there
correct.
are people that do believe it is evidence.
And those people are wrong.
How do you know?
Because the book cannot be evidence for the existence of a God. You need more than that to demonstrate.
The book cannot be proof.
Okay.
But the book can be evidence.
If you had some way of demonstrating that it was written by or inspired by...
I do.
Okay.
Isaiah 40:18. To whom then will you liken God, or what likeness will you compare him with? That means, sir, that God is incomprehensible. You cannot understand the thinkings of a God or the actions of a God.
Except for you, I'm assuming.
No, I do not understand them myself.
Then how can you believe in something you can't comprehend?
Do you believe in the universe, sir?
Yes.
Do you comprehend everything about the universe?
I don't have to comprehend everything about the universe.
I don't have to comprehend everything about God.
Yes, but the thing is, I have evidence for the existence of the universe.
I have evidence for the existence of
and my
God.
evidence is not just a book says so.
Had part in the universe, in the creation of the universe.
You certainly seem to have a whole lot of comprehensible things about this incomprehensible God, and yet they don't make any sense.
Well, it isn't an incomprehensible God.
You said it was.
God had a hand in creating the universe. I believe
So
that God...
was he working with somebody?
He's not working with anybody, sir, no.
So he created the universe all on his own?
Of course, why not?
Okay. How do you know that God created the universe?
There is evidence in the Bible that he created...
No. Evidence?
Yes, there is evidence in the Bible that God created the universe.
So George, this conversation is going to be pointless because if you just keep going back to your ancient book, we're getting nowhere.
But what you don't understand, sir, is the ancient book means something to me. I believe in what the book says.
I understand that. You tell me I don't understand that. I absolutely understand that. Do you not understand that I was a Christian for 25 years and the book used to mean something to me? The difference is that I found out that the book itself cannot be confirmation of what you think it does, and now your book means nothing to me.
Right. But you use science and science books as your arguments.
No.
Nothing to me.
No, I don't.
We cannot have a conversation.
George, I don't use just science books. If you want to say I use science, that's fine, but I don't just point to science books. The fact that something is in a book, whether it's a science book or anything else, has no bearing on whether it's actually true. The truth of an idea is independent from whether it's in a book, whether somebody believes it, or how passionately they believe it.
Well,
recommend that
you just disregard my information as wrong.
No, I don't just disregard your information is wrong. My position is that your book is not sufficient to justify the claims you think it does. And you can cite the book and ministers all day long, but that doesn't get you any closer to the truth, which is why there's no Nobel Prize for discovering God. I care about what's actually true.
Stretches out over empty space.
I care about what's
and hangeth the world upon nothing. Now, you explain to me how people in 2000 BC would have ever dreamed that the earth was suspended in nothing.
The earth isn't suspended.
The earth is suspended by gravity.
Okay, look, first of all, you can cite the passages in the Bible that you think tell us something about science?
To me,
and we could also
me,
we could also. Do I have to put you on hold? Do I have to? Well, okay. I don't care what is evidence to you, at all.
Well, I don't understand how we can have any kind of discussion if you just disregard
we can't.
everything that
we can't.
You don't, then why do you have this show?
Because I'm not always talking, George, because I'm not always talking to people like you who like a book and think that it tells them the truth. I also talk to people who care about rational conversation, about scientific evidence and rational discourse.
To me, sir, this is a rational conversation.
Then you don't know. Then you don't know what rational is.
Exactly. Because you think that what I think is not rational. That's your opinion.
Well, no, it's not.
That your thoughts are not rational.
No, sir, it's not just an opinion. There is.
It is just an opinion because my opinion is different than that.
George, if we had followed your logic and your opinion, which we did for 2,000 years, we would still be worshiping devils. We would still be thinking devils cause disease. We would think devils cause mental illness. We would try to cast demons out of people.
Well,
we now know.
Because that's just ignorance, sir. That's just ignorant.
Well, Jesus cast demons out of people. Jesus was pretty damn ignorant himself, in my estimation. I know.
Jesus performed miracles and Jesus cured the sick, and that was interpreted by people that didn't know any better, who thought he was casting demons, when actually he was curing an ailment from that person.
Okay,
but people 2,000 years ago who saw that assumed he was casting demons.
Great. So what you've just said is the book you believe in has faulty information in it, and your God hasn't bothered to update it.
It has faulty information, I agree.
And your God hasn't bothered to update it, and yet you can somehow discern the truth from the fiction within it. What mechanism do you...
Yes, I can, because I have a mind and I have a brain.
Yes, and so do I, and so do all the other people who disagree with you, including people who are believers in the God. You realize there's thousands of denominations that adhere.
Yes, I realize that, of course.
And they disagree on all sorts of things, and yet you got it right.
No, I don't got it right.
Oh, okay. Thanks for calling. I hope those 8th graders continue to watch the show so that they can find out about what you think is rational, because this is not just a matter of opinion, okay? This is an entire branch of philosophy, epistemology, about how we go about determining whether or not a claim is reasonably and rationally justified. And extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. The fact that the claim that there is a God is an extraordinary claim which requires more evidence than just pointing to an old book. That is simply not rational, not sufficient to the claim. Sorry, it's not just an opinion. There's more to life than that. Anyway, because if person A's thing is this old book and my belief in it is entirely rational and you're just relying on science, oh, well, then we're just appealing to our own individual authorities and opinions. No, we're actually not, because the things within science are testable, and independently verifiable.
The beauty of what we just heard was of a devout person admitting his book is fallible.
Yeah.
And he can't tell us what parts are and what aren't based on any kind of objective.
Well, he thinks he can, but not on objective.
Right, he can, and he's trying to tell his 8th graders that they can too, if they just follow him. But if they just went down the street to the next church, the next guy would tell them a different set of those facts are true and not true.
Yeah, so for all the 8th graders, the best question you can ask is, how do you know? How do you know? Because if you can't come up with some way of knowing, for example, well, we've actually looked at the evidence. Well, what do you mean by evidence? Well, Isaiah, blah, blah, blah. Okay, no, that's not, I mean, you can say that this is a piece of evidence that you're working with, but what are you actually doing? You're pointing to a book and saying, it says this, and look, it kind of actually maps to something in reality. Checkmate. No. You have no idea, even if it was actually correct, even if, let's say that instead of this, he hangs the earth in the sky. Let's say there was a passage in Isaiah that said, that described, perhaps in a poetic way, the germ theory of disease. Awesome information in there, it's correct. What does that tell us? How did those people know that? First of all, Did they actually know it? Is this happenstance? Is this coincidence? Are we interpreting this in hindsight to view it this way? Or did they actually have an understanding of the germ theory of disease? And if they did have an understanding of the germ theory of disease, how in fact did they know this and understand it? This is exactly like him saying, oh, he hangs the earth in there and it suspends it from nothing. Gravity's not nothing, hate to tell you. But they get all this right. We don't know how they knew. You have to provide evidence of how they knew. Now, his belief, of course, is that they knew because God told them. But you can't demonstrate that. Maybe they knew because ancient aliens came and informed them. Yeah. Or maybe they had information and had to come by some of the same means that we have, and had some rudimentary understanding of some things, and then lost it. I mean, maybe...
Well, the whole atomic theory, there seems to be some analog to that in Greek philosophy. But looking back, we wouldn't claim that they understood atomic theory. It took us today, science today, to understand atomic physics.
Somebody was the first person to discover all this stuff. Somebody was the first person to understand all this stuff. It's rationality is not just a matter of opinion. I don't know how else to explain that, because your view that it's all a matter of opinion puts us in the position where nobody can ever have a discussion about anything. My position is that once we agree on standards of evidence, we can actually begin to look at this.
I'm sure glad my doctor wants to agree on standards of evidence when it's doing diagnosis on my body.
Yeah.
And this fellow that just called in probably wants his doctor to have a standard of evidence that would be a hell of a lot higher than his standard of evidence around his own book.
Yeah, you know, hey, sorry you got that cancer thing. It's my opinion that instead of chemotherapy, you should eat jelly beans.
And pray some more.
Just as valid as yours, isn't it? Isn't it all just opinion? Isn't it all just relative?